Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tom Watts, Head of Design with Design and Crafts Council, and you're welcome to today's talk. It's in response to a conversation that was pretty huge last year at Showcase around Irish wool production and the fact that we had very little of it on an island where we have millions of sheep, and that a situation existed where the shearing of a sheep was more expensive than the price that you could get for a fleece. So in response to that, the Irish Grown Wool Council was formed, which are an amazing organisation that are trying to progress the conversation around wool production in Ireland. So I think you're going to find today's panel discussion really, really engaging. And I'll introduce you now to today's moderator, who's Rebecca Marsden.
Great. Thank you very much, Tom. It's a real pleasure to be here today. My name is Rebecca Marsden. I'm the manager of the Forge Design Factory, and I'm also a member of the Wool Hub. The Wool Hub was set up in support of the Irish Grown Wool Council to further research across a multitude of areas. So really, I suppose the Irish Grown Wool Council is a voluntary body with an all-island approach, and the vision is to bring wool stakeholders together to recognise the potential of Irish grown wool as a natural, sustainable, and really key to the talks that we're going to be looking at today, versatile material. So we're going to be talking about its uses across a broad spectrum of applications. I'm delighted to be joined by a fantastic panel of experts, if you'd like to join me here on the stage. And what I'd encourage you all to do is to keep an eye on the Irish Grown Wool Council website for events and talks and discussions that will be featuring on the website. And key to, I suppose, this conversation is that it's going to be continuing over the next few days. So today we're talking about heritage and horizon, looking to the great rich heritage that we have with Irish grown wool in this country and what the future prospects are. Tomorrow we're going to be looking at U to SKU, and we're going to have a wonderful panel of speakers who are going to be talking across everything from fashion, textiles, product, and then we're going to be looking at winding things up on Tuesday, but really not winding things up, I suppose, amping them up. It would be a better way to put it, because we're going to be focusing on the research and innovation that's happening in that space. So three days, 3 talks, and delighted to be here with our panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to the panel to introduce themselves one by one, and then we'll kick off the panel discussion. And to say that we're going to give 10 minutes at the end for questions and answers. So if something comes to mind, hold that thought, and we'd be happy to hear from you at the end of the discussion. Super.
Hi, my name is Claire McGovern. My design studio is based in New York City. We're called Rhyme Studio. We practice a multidisciplinary assortment of creative pursuits, interior design. I also represent a couple of fine artists, including an Irish sculptor, Helen O'Connell. And in 2017, we started making an Irish wool carpet and tapestry collection in Ireland, which has since branched into Irish wool textiles, which are all debuting at Showcase Ireland today. Yes, our first exhibition in Ireland.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you. Fergal.
Hello, my name is Fergal Byrne. I'm an organic farmer from Kildare. I farm both cattle, sheep, and tillage. I suppose we've sold our wool organically to Yarns and Vibes in Cork. I suppose I think it's about 7 years now ago since we sold our first lot of it, and it's happening every year since. I'm also involved in the Irish Cattle and Sheep Farmers Association. I'm a member of the Organic Forum Council going forward for 2025 to 2030. One of the things on that we done was we got organic wool on the product as organic things for going forward, kind of way, you know. We're also a member of the Irish Grown Wool Council. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Alison Gault and I am an educator and a researcher. I'm based in Ulster University, Belfast School of Art. I'm senior lecturer in fashion and knit, and we have knit, print, embroidery, weave and garment construction for our undergraduate and postgraduate students. I'm also president of the International Federation of Knitting Technologists here in Ireland. And I'm delighted to be here and be part of the Irish Grown Wool Council. And I'm also, with Rebecca and others, on the Research Wool Hub. And, you know, there's wonderful things happening, so we're delighted to be here today to talk to you about that.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ngaire Takano. I speak with a slightly different accent than everybody else. I am Australian background, but I live in Belgium. I've worked with wool for the last 20 plus years in Australia as a shearer, and it's progressed to also sourcing textiles for designers, but with a focus on traceability and transparency. Though during pre-COVID, I started looking at the issues with wool, and one of them is the scouring process, and over the last 3 years I've developed a circular scouring process which is using less water, less energy and more wool. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Jayne Harkness-Bones. I am the depot manager, joint depot manager at the Ulster Wool Grading Depot, which is, if anyone's been to the international airport, not far from there. We're actually a farmers' cooperative that was established back in 1950 for farmers, by farmers. So I'm on the front line, I guess, if you want to say, of the phone calls of why am I not getting enough money for my wool? So we grade every single fleece individually by hand. It's then sold in a controlled way through 20 auctions throughout a 12-month period. And then every single grade is averaged out across those 20 auctions. So every farmer gets paid the same price for the same grade of wool. Now Fergal had mentioned he's an organic farmer. There's also premiums that are paid to farmers, and it's a scale. It ranges across the different categories of wool. That's something that our marketing team are working very hard on, trying to get manufacturers to understand the supply of wool that we have. You know, all wool's not the same, and they're working very hard to try and feed that information back to our manufacturers. But the key of that is our consumers, and working closely with them to understand the benefits of wool, about why wool is a good choice to have in your home and on your body. We also are the provider of shearing, training and wool handling courses throughout Northern Ireland and the UK. And yeah, I sit on the wool quality and presentation subgroup of the Irish Grown Wool Council. I'm delighted to be asked to come here and speak today, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens. Thank you.
Fantastic. Brilliant. I think you'll all agree, a fantastic range of expertise in front of us. And I think what we'll do is kick off maybe at the farm. So from your perspective, Fergal, I suppose as an organic farmer, you haven't been an organic farmer from the outset. It was a transition you made about 9-10 years ago now.
That's right.
And a sort of an enterprising move as much as anything. And across your farm, you've got cattle. You've got tillage, oats, turkeys, I believe, and sheep. And I suppose part of thinking across mixed land use and opportunities that the farm can provide came about your partnership with Joan Lucy and Yarn Vibes. It would be wonderful if we could hear a little bit more. I think that has nicely synced your fleece there from the farm, the organic wool being spun into beautiful yarn. If you could maybe tell us a little bit about that story, that partnership, and how it's evolved over the last few years.
Yeah, it was a lovely story, and it's something I'm very proud of. It's sort of kind of a way after happening, and I suppose 7 or 8 years ago, Joan rang me up one day, and she got my number from someone, and she asked me, she was on about wool and stuff kind of way, and what she was doing with the wool and stuff and everything else. And I just happened to say I was only after getting my full symbol in organics at that stage. And I says to her then at that stage, she said, why don't you go organic wool? And she says, where will I get organic wool? And I said, sure, I'll sell it to you. So that's how really I was started, was kind of way at that stage. So went from there, and we met Joan, and we had a chat with her, and the next thing, Joan went off for a while, then went off for a fortnight, 3 weeks anyway, and she came back to me, she said, oh God, she said to you, Fergal, she said, I have great news. She said, I met this lovely man up in Donegal, Chris from Donegal Yarn. Everyone knows Chris, right? So, and that was another stepping stone at that stage, and so one day then Chris and Joan come down to visit my farm, kind of, right? And we sat in the kitchen and we talked for 2 hours, and I brought them out and I showed them the whole farm and stuff kind of way, and showed them my sheep and stuff like that at that stage. And then at that stage, then it come to our first shearing at that stage. So Joan actually come up for the shearing at that stage, kind of ways, and that's where this video was being made. It's kind of right, kind of way. So we done what we had to do on that day, and there was a lot of work that we put into it, like, kind of way, and we had a big tear out of the wool at that stage, in a way, to get the quality that she wanted to do this specific job and stuff, kind of way. And actually, Joan come up, and we laughed at the good of it, kind of way. She rolled up her sleeves and she got in, and she got into, she threw out the dags and everything else, kind of way, and she done that, and she done it with my daughters and everything else, kind of way, And that's where that happened then at that stage. And then we went on, then she took it from there, and then it went to Chris. We went to Kevin Dooley took it at that stage, but we went through Chris and Donegal Yarn, and went to Bradford to get scoured, and eventually then when that was done, we were happy with that. Then I went back up to Donegal then at that stage, kind of way, and up into Donegal Yarn, and where they spun it then at that stage and so kind of way, and got it organised at that stage. So that's the story of Joan and she and the wool. But it was an incredible. It was very incredible, and it was very, even when that video was made, and we're still very, very proud. Even and Chris is very proud of it as well. You know what I'm saying, kind of way, and so was Joan of our work that we went, of that journey. If you know what I'm saying to you, on that kind of way, and it kind of it showed, looking at where a farmer, if you know what I'm saying, can collaborate with an end supplier, if you know what I'm saying, to kind of way, and with the Irish businesses and so forth in the country and so forth, kind of way, with as regards Donegal Yarn and so forth, kind of way, to get it to where it is in at that stage, kind of way. So, and I suppose really, where it all boils down to now is for Joan to get her to get a buyer for her yarn, and I suppose that's the next maybe more crucial thing on it. Then that stage, when she has to get more sales to make sure that it is sustainable in kind of way. Yeah. It's a very sustainable product. It all things it has to stay selling every year. Even I'm saying to you, going forward, and I suppose that's the whole key to it. The whole key to this is it's over anyway. It is, but it's a very natural product, and a very Irish product, and a very original product, if I'm saying together. And it is Irish grown wool, even I'm saying together. It's 100% Irish grown wool, or 100% organic wool, and so forth, kind of way. So it's a very unique product, and so kind of way. So it's something we're extremely proud of, to be honest with you.
And a fantastic collaboration, as you say, across all partners.
Yes.
And I think it's, I suppose that sorting of the wool and the attention that's given to the fleece, to extract the longest fibres, the high quality fibres that you can use for those beautiful yarns. But I think today and the next few days are going to be talking around all sorts of fantastic ways we can use the sheep's fleece. And I might come to you on that, Ngaire, in that, across a sheep's fleece, if we were to literally lay it out in front of us, there's so many potential applications and qualities across that fleece in terms of, sort of grease content, and I might let you talk to us a little bit around what you've discovered through your research and potential applications.
Yeah, here, taking a traditional scouring mill, the mill that washes the wool, they tend to use anything up to 40 to 50% of a fleece, and the rest of the fleece is otherwise treated as waste, except for if you're a handicrafter, you want to use your fleece as much as possible. And I started looking at a whole fleece holistically and where it could be broken down into. So you've got your interior, your fashion side of things, you've got your agricultural use, you've got your packaging use. Fleece, we need to look at it as not just the waste that it is now, but a whole of it, because we have more opportunity to then capture into using the fleece, which is then viable not just for the farmer, but also for the producer. So when I also scour and card wool for designers, I give them the whole fleece. And initially, designers would go, oh, what do we do with all this? This is this bag, and this bag. And I broke it down into all the sections. And then it got them thinking, and it challenged them. And that was the interesting aspect that designers said to me was, we just saw the fleece as this bit here is just for yarn, but we can actually use this other bits for other things uses as well.
As well, yeah. And I think we've got some fantastic examples of Irish wool being used across Showcase. I know the Galway is here and being used across. I've seen some beautiful lamp designs, I think, from Karen Ryan, and beautiful rugs from Cadogan. And over the next few days, we're going to be speaking with McGee's and Eru. Kevin Dooley, actually, though he can't be here in person, I have some of his beautiful product, which I meant to bring up onto the stage. Chris, you might pop it up to me. You're very good. So, yeah, I just think the versatility is really incredible. And in that vein, maybe, Alison, you've done some phenomenal work across, I suppose, outside of our worn comfort products. That there's very technological sort of applications for fibre, and it'd be lovely to hear a little bit about your research in that space at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I've always been a lover of wool as a designer. I've always seen what a fantastic material it is, whether it's in yarn or in a fleece or whatever. So to hear, I think for me, that it was a Category 3 waste in Ireland was quite distressing, actually, when I knew that even through working with performance fabrics, and a lot of them being polymers and polymeric fibres, and we know the damage that has done. Both to our land and to our seas, and the microfibers that are being leached out. And I started to think, well, we've got this material available here to us in many different forms. One of my first research projects was with a company called Bioflex Yarns, and it was around health and well-being and creating fibers for diabetics. And we went on to produce some fabrics for SIDS, where we were co-mingling our fibers, and we were looking at nanofiber, nanotechnology to embed with cellulosic fibers, but then actually embedding that in the wool. And we found that when the two of those worked together, there was some magic that happened, and there's a lot of research going on in terms of that. But it is, we hear a lot about smart technology and smart fibers. Wool is a smart fiber. It's got hydrophilic and hygroscopic properties that are incredible. So we went on, and we've continued on our journey, and Chris and I worked on an Intertrade Island project where we made some interesting steps into looking at, again, commingling with polymers, with hemp and all sorts of different fibers to see what the market out there, what they would be interested in. We made some really interesting products through that, and then it went on to we looked at not even making it into yarn, but looking at it as a non-woven, as they call it in the industry, a felt product, and then we created this on the easel here is actually commingled hemp and Irish wool, and it's embedded with bioresins. There are some non-bioresins because I got some funding from DERA to create a textile garden where I think it's all about education. I know that a lot of my students and a lot of the general public are wearing plastic clothes, because they don't really understand. They want that, that cheap hit of a new, and I blame the Instagram generation that they're wanting a new outfit for Instagram. So a lot of mine goes back to, yes, it's research and it's innovation, but it's also about education. And we are seeing ways. So this might be fibre that you can't put on, that you can't wear, that might not be suitable for the body, but it could be amazing in rugs, or it could be amazing in carpets. And I know that this is now going to go into our roof garden. Jaguar Land Rover are very interested in it for internal specs for their cars, but also architects are really interested in it for interiors, because it is a beautiful product and there's lots that we could do with that. So there's a bit of innovation in those terms, but we've also got quite big funding to look at how we can develop that circularity on the island of Ireland. We've got 4.65 million. We are working with partners in the Irish Wool Council and Irish Grown Wool Council, and also with Donegal Yarns and Ulster Wool as well, to see how we can create a wonderful model that would be transferable in Ireland. It's actually based on Rathlin, on one of the islands, and we're looking at ways to go from a linear, where we just make and we produce, we process, and then we throw it away, to more of a circular, and keeping that within our systems that we can reuse and bring back those really interesting resources, use less water, use less energy, and actually stop throwing things into landfill. So there's lots of benefits there. So I think it's about a 3 or 4 year project that we're going to be working on, and with partners here today as well. So it's very exciting.
Fantastic. And I think that's the thing, that's the core to it as well, isn't it? Those partnerships and collaboration to progress these things. And so exciting to hear about the new waves of innovation and directions that Wool is taking. But I want to turn to a wonderful product that we have right here on the stage with us from Rhyme Studio, and the absolutely beautiful way that Wool performs just as it is. It would be fantastic to hear a little bit about the Rhyme Studio story and the storytelling that exists within the product, and how you've engaged with different producers and suppliers over the last few years, Claire.
So the studio is in New York City, and in 2017, it was I've been living in the US for 2 decades now, well over 2 decades, and always had a plan to start making a design collection in Ireland that was going to be sustainable. We practice interior design. That's been a real philosophical driver for a lot of the work we're doing, and wanted to start a collection that would celebrate Irish craftsmanship. So we kind of accidentally fell into working with Irish Wool. It's ultimately going to be a multimedia design collection, welcoming lots of different collaborations with different Irish-based suppliers. We started prototyping with Irish Wool in 2017, only to discover hardly anybody else was using it. And this led me on a path of wondering exactly why this situation had come to pass. I think by 2018 we debuted the collection initially in New York City, and then in 2020, economically, the market for Irish wool collapsed. So at that point, I'd figured out that there was a real problem in terms of native Irish wool not being celebrated. And I think it's a very complicated situation. There's a lot of different factors, many of them historical as well. But it really galvanized us anyhow to start expanding on a design principle that would draw in a lot of historical iconography. And for us, I'd have to say good design is absolutely not only sustainable, but based on a great story. And of course, we're Irish. We love a good story. And I think there's a lot to tap into in Irish history generally. So in 2020, I would say, was the first time we connected also, Chris, with Donegal Yarns. And I think the Galway Co-op had kind of come into new formations. So we connected with Byrne Gallagher as well. And prior to that point, it was becoming clear that we were having a lot of difficulty really accessing a traceable native Irish wool source. And so between Chris and Byrne and I, last year, actually, we debuted a collection in New York called Byrne. So It's obviously Bonine is undyed white yarn, the original Aran sweater yarn, which I believe it's now, there are a number of makers really pushing forward with using native Irish wool and starting to make sweaters again with this material, but the market for that had really bottomed out. So it seemed apropos to celebrate Galway wool as in this beautifully traceable, gorgeous fibre that for carpet and tapestry will last a lifetime with the appropriate care. And so from that point on, it was we really delved more and more then into the scientifically proven and I think extremely overlooked benefits of wool fibre. So obviously we're biased towards Irish wool, but it's not limited to Irish wool at all. The truth of the matter is globally, I think 2% of the global fibre market share today is wool. It's well over 70% dominated by synthetic fibres. You cannot produce synthetic fibre without fossil fuels. So this is the way the global market has gone. And again, it was, I suppose it was meant to be, because I personally, even though I'm very invested in sustainable design, wasn't even aware of all these details until we really dived into our Irish wool project. So yeah, we have 7 collections today. We've also just debuted, we're calling it Real Irish Wool Textile Collection, and our first foray into furniture. Everything is made by hand in Ireland, and we're increasing the number of different wonderful Irish-based companies that we're working with, yeah, so.
Brilliant. A fantastic story, and one that's, yeah, going to continue to evolve, no doubt, as more partners come on board, and, yeah, as you say.
That's the intent, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I think that the crispness, the creamy Galway wool, it's such a beautiful base for the dyes that you're working with and the colours that
it is.
And
we got another collection off the ground actually in September of last year, which we're calling Black Sheep. So that is actually a natural undyed dark brown wool fibre. So it comes from Zwartblaas, which was originally Dutch but brought to Ireland in the 90s. But traditionally, Black Sheep, this wool was considered worthless. So it's very rewarding to really push forward with developing design from fibres that were traditionally forsaken, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose on that, you know, the sort of the black sheep angle, and I might come to Jayne on this when it comes to wool colours and when it comes to the handling and the grading and the sorting. I suppose from an educational perspective as well, how important is it that there's a sort of an understanding around some degree of sorting and grading before it gets to you, that sort of good practice of not mixing your colors, fleeces, and I suppose bringing and presenting the best possible product.
That's it. If we were sitting in New Zealand or Australia or even South Africa, that classification process and that grading process happens at the time of shearing. So there's people that are trained, educated and employed to actually do that at the time, but we don't have that here. So what we do at Ulster Wool is we sort it out basically. And if there was, you were saying about, there are no limits to wool, there are no boundaries. There's nothing that you can't consider to use for wool. But the one thing that we would see as being a big issue is vegetable matter contamination. And I don't know where the most of it comes from, but from my own personal experience, like I'm a sheep farmer as well, so I've got sheep at home, and at the time of shearing, farmers will bring the sheep in from the fields into a shed, and that shed has maybe got a straw bed in it, and all that straw is getting into that fleece before they're even shorn. Then they're shorn, and the wool is maybe put on an unclean floor, and that's contaminating that fleece every time it comes into contact with something it shouldn't be. The naturally coloured fleeces, the second big piece of advice is if you've got any coloured sheep mixed within a white flock is to shear them last. Keep pushing them back because that wool, if it comes in contact with your white wool, it'll contaminate every white fleece that comes into contact with. And you think about if anyone's braved the shave before and got their head shaved, and all those little tiny, tiny fibres, if those black and grey fibres gets into really good hog wool, you're literally devaluing it by more than half. You want to keep those coloured sheep separate and pack the wool separately. And if that was the two biggest pieces of advice I could give, that would be it. And obviously shear them dry. Do not shear your sheep when they're damp or wet. Not only is it a health and safety hazard, yes, but if you shear that wool when it's damp, the tips of that staple will actually go brown and rot and go off, and it'll heat in the bag. You don't want to do that. So.
Yep, no, brilliant advice, I think, for any farmers out there or any aspirational
might be speaking to many farmers in the audience, but yeah.
And I suppose one of the key chief stumbling blocks that we face here in Ireland as well is the scouring for high volume. And your own research, Ngaire, around this space. We've had the privilege of having you visit last year and take part in a knowledge exchange roadshow around Ireland and deliver talks. But it was really wonderful to hear about the positive potential there is for circular scouring methods. And you might share a little bit of your research and thoughts around that and how we might look towards having a more sustainable future here for scouring down the line.
Well, I will say, first and foremost, there's huge potential here in Ireland to do that. The thing is, we also have to look back at what Jayne has just mentioned, the problems of the vegetable matter before we start investing into a scouring plant, because if we do the same process now, we're going to be in the same situation 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. So we really need to make sure that the farmers have a good understanding, or the shearers have a good understanding in terms of what not to do and what to do. But when it comes to scouring, at the moment, you've got 1 kilo of wool uses about 400 litres of water. That water is temperature between at least roughly, and this is a mill that I know that from the UK that I've spoken to, and also gathering from in Belgium, because we've got a large scouring plant in Belgium as well, that they're using temperatures of anything between sort of 50 to 70 degrees. And this is water that's running continually. So you've got this hot water, you've got the energy that's being used, you've also got a waste aspect, because when you do take it even to a mini mill, if I'm giving 60 kilos of wool, I'm probably only going to get 30 or maybe 25, 30 kilos of wool back. So what happens to the other 30? Well, that gets thrown away as well. So there are these little issues that are occurring at the moment. For me, I looked at the scouring process as a whole, the washing process, and I started developing it in a circular manner, so that is less water, less energy, as well as also no chemicals at all. And to me, I looked again, which I mentioned earlier, the holistic use of the fleece, because that is so important. And then again, it's building the relationship with the farmers to ensure that they have a better shearing process and a better, appreciation also for their sheep, because a lot of the farmers have disconnected because they see it more of a hurdle than, it's something that we've got to get the fleece off the sheep. If we don't get it off, then, that's another year or so forth. But sheep also have to be sheared as well, and that's important. Yeah, it is. So for me, scouring is a bottleneck. It's something that we can do here. I think Ireland, well, I know deep down in my heart that Ireland has the huge potential, but we really do need to look at how farmers and interlink, and we can't all do it on our own. We have to collaborate and work together. And the thing is also with the scouring process, I'm also tapping out lanolin. That's another resource that can be used. Great for beauty, great for agriculture, great even for food. We've got multiple uses of wool, and it's not just your auntie's jumper or your uncle's socks.
Absolutely. And I think what I'm hearing across a lot of the areas is that, need for focus on education and training across all areas as well. And I know that's something that, Jayne, you drive hard for as well when it comes to shearing and wool handling. And I know that the Irish Grown Wool Council will hope to be announcing some very sort of sector-specific training in time to support these areas as well. So we really look forward to that and keep tuned. I suppose keeping with the education side of things, Alison, from your own student cohort that you're seeing, really very, very focused and sensitive to the climate situation that we're dealing with, and trying their very best to craft their own narrative through their new collections. And how have you sort of found their engagement with materials, maybe shift and change? You spoke to that kind of Instagram generation, and you know, as young innovators, there's always that, you know, want to push and create. But how are you finding their sort of grappling with the challenges, and then I suppose engaging with the more sustainable options of materials?
Well, I think, yes, we have that Instagram generation that has created a bit of a monster, if you like. And of course, in lockdown, you know, we would talk about fast fashion and the slow movement and everything slowing down and crafting and that being very important. I've seen a real change, actually, since then in terms of handmade. A lot of the students have really gone back to crochet, knitting, hand looming, all of that. That's amazing for me. I have not seen that for 10 or 15 years, and I really think that was kind of through COVID that they reconnected with that, and there was almost a generation of people online, you know, training children, young people in those skills, which was very encouraging. I think that then when it related to them, you know, they had to then start to think about themselves and their own behaviours, and I think changing behaviour is a really difficult thing, but I think it's through the next generation. Yes, we need to keep at that and keep chipping away. I found that once you start to talk to them about looking at the content, you know, looking at, there was lots of people out there like Redress, and, you know, lots of people that are doing quite interesting innovations with, you know, fashion for good, etc. And once they start to look at what's actually the content of the fibre, where has been made, how far, you know, I mean, it's chilling to think that, you know, if you order something on Amazon, it hits 5 different countries before it hits your own doorstep. That's absolutely madness. We need to contract the supply chain. So when they start to hear that and they start to think about that, they've absolutely done a turnaround. I think in the world, it's gone from fast fashion to hyper-fast fashion. It's gone the other direction, unfortunately. But I do think as far as our students and what they're doing, they are trying to show the beauty of using a natural fibre. They're very interested in fibres that are made on the island. They're really interested in people looking at innovations, even in the byproduct, whether it's lanolin, Ulster wool, what they're doing, where they can get those fibres. You know, because there is a cost. There is a cost to them to bring that in, you know, whereas can they get it locally? Can they locally source that? So they are seeing that. I can see a real change in that. Or looking at, we had a lovely project with bags and different people on looking at how to use their waste. We obviously partner with Donegal Yarns and use their fibres. So there has been, the Irish, the Galway wool has been used in some of the product projects here as well with students. So I think there is a growing awareness. I think we need to be shouting that really loudly, that we have a fabulous product here on Ireland. Yes, there are challenges to that and getting our hands on that, but actually we need to rise to those challenges. And I do think that there is, you know, the heart is running after that. And I do think that we need to get government and those, you know, those sort of people on our side to kind of drive this forward. We need a bit of a financial investment actually for that.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think it's really reassuring to hear that there's that passion and drive from the young innovators coming up, and, you know, often that they're the most you know, sort of resourceful bunch. You know, what have we got to hand? Yeah. And we have wool to hand, you know, in all of its many ways and shapes and forms, and that idea, I suppose, of engaging with those lovely traditional processes as well, and taking the time, I suppose the sort of the well-being and the mindfulness that can come through these processes of making.
And it's about going back to that. How do you make that?
How do you?
It's a similar story to food, isn't it? We sort of lost ourselves with where our food came from, and it's about getting back to that. How is that made?
How is that
made?
Where
does it come from?
Yeah.
How is it how is it cleaned, cleansed, processed? What is all, and so they're reconnecting with that, and I can see that happening. It's just we all need to reconnect with that.
Absolutely. And are you finding that, Claire, through your clients and your customers, that there's that curiosity and love for understanding the kind of behind the scenes of the making? It's just the most fascinating thing to watch a tapestry or a carpet being created.
Yeah, I mean, there is absolutely that, but I would say, while I think COVID and the pandemic definitely did jolt a lot more people into being more inclined to choose sustainably, there is so far to go. There really is. I mean, we're very much in the luxury side of the handmade production price point market at the moment. And I can give you a few kind of statistics about the US carpet industry. We're just kind of learning, what's going on in Europe lately. But in the US, it's really, it's just a massively unsustainable market. So I only learned, I think about 9 months ago, that synthetics basically, I would say the carpet market as a global force is, completely dominated by synthetics. And most of that is coming out of China and equivalent countries, shipping all around the globe. There is a fallacy that synthetics are somehow more durable than nature's miracle fiber wool. So what has happened and is now building code in the US today, I believe a couple of decades ago this code was passed, the synthetics industry lobbied the US government to insist that they included at least 50% synthetic fiber in all commercial carpeting that is specified across what would be billions of square feet of real estate in America. And that's true today. So what is happening is wool, which absolutely does not need any other fiber involved with it to perform, is being merged with synthetics. And this is all product that's ultimately winding up into landfill and off-gassing for centuries, outliving us all. So that's one side of the carpet market alone. New York State has actually moved towards very recently passing a law that I think by 2025 they're going to mandate that every carpet maker is performing, some measure of recycling, buyback programs. But I mean, there is in the US, as most of you know as well, it is really a problem. And I think, honestly, in terms of choosing, say for example, just within the carpet industry, if you're going to choose, a wool carpet that's made in India or a wool carpet that's made in Ireland, even if the person is very motivated to choose sustainably, ultimately price, I think, is still going to win the day. So right now we're fighting definitely to keep making Irish wool carpet in Ireland. And that's part of the reason why we're here in January 2024, not only to, definitely kind of spearhead more collaborations, but we want to make Irish wool carpet in Ireland, and it's quite an expensive proposition at the moment. So anyhow,
yeah. But if we, I suppose, looking to the US, but then if we were to look to New Zealand and the government directive that is now coming through, whereby carpet insulation in all government buildings must be wool first. Now it's not. I suppose they're not writing out the inclusion of synthetics, but that must be the drive forward. And I think it's something that we can learn from, look to and learn.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's always going to be, I suppose, these.
There is, yeah. I mean, we produced a 5-page scientific report on the wellness attributes of wool. Of course, we're biased towards Irish wool, but we go into architecture and design offices, across North America on occasion, and even if they might be LEED certified architect, designer, specifiers, we find ourselves constantly educating them about what wool is going to do for your interior. It'll literally purify the air in your commercial lobby, you know. We have some basic acoustic test assessments. I mean, but you know, so much more work needs to be done, and we've been having increasing conversations, certainly with other people in Ireland, about how can we test this. The acoustics industry globally alone is like that product in itself is massively unsustainable. And but it's just we keep making things artificially when we don't need to do that. Yeah. We can just, you know, use Irish wool.
Use Irish wool. Back to you, Fergal. And I suppose, yeah, from what we've discussed, and I'm aware we're coming up to 10 to, so I'd love to hear from the floor in a few minutes. But in terms of a lot of the things we've spoken around, sort of collaboration and innovation in the space, do you see sort of cooperative models being the way forward for farmers and sort of, I suppose, engaging? It's a community-wide effort, really, to further the...
Yeah, I reckon that it is one of the ways forward. There is a start being made at. We have the Kerry Co-op, and you have, after you mentioned a couple of times here as well, the Galway Wool Co-op and so forth, kind of way, right? And it is the way forward, and it's the way forward maybe to the next stages of the wool as well. Even I'm saying of the production of the wool, or getting it linked together, even I'm saying kind of way, and maybe to a certain extent, maybe the grading of the wool and different grades and different types of wool kind of way, the lowland and hill sheep and so forth, everything else like kind of way. It's getting them particular aspects together. So because some people mightn't just have enough of wool to get done at the one particular stage, you kind of way to have the thing economically viable, you have to have, kind of way, we're going to, say, if you have to go to Bradford to get it done, there's no point going less than 2 ton, you know what I'm saying, kind of way.
Yeah.
So if you had the cooperative there, kind of way, yes, that would be the way to go forward in it. And then even at that stage, and if you had some sort of an initiative then that you had to do with your wool and so forth, the cooperative then at that stage, kind of maybe then might be slightly better than to just one person going forward, kind of way to kind of way. So, and it, with more access to more finance and everything else kind of way. I think it's it will happen. If I'm saying eventually that will be the thing to work anyway. And look, just to say, 2 heads are better than one. Even if you are really happy, if I'm saying kind of way, So, and if you have a cooperative, you have say 7 or 8 different people, so kind of way, and they're all putting their minds together, so kind of way. Yes, see, this will happen, kind of way.
Absolutely, because even there may be people here today. I grew up on an organic farm back in the 90s, and very small scale, but that idea, the fact that we're looking into a situation where the cost of shearing is prohibitive, to small scale farmers, but building something together.
Building something together. Like sure, I suppose. Back in the day, I suppose that's how the milk got going in this country was through co-ops and so forth. And if the same initiative was taken on this, so kind of way, yes, of course, kind of way, and then maybe at some stage in the future, kind of way that we'd have we mightn't necessarily be going to England to get their wool scoured. Mightn't necessarily be going, but that depends on funds and depends on what it costs to get it done. But yet at the same time, if there was
power in numbers,
power in numbers. I suppose that's exactly the kind of way. But it's something that's very worthwhile looking forward and looking into. To be honest with you, kind of way, We, as the Wool Council, we would be, one of the things we would be promoting is a cooperative model in some kind of way going forward. You know what I'm saying? And we did actually talk about it and so forth. Kind of way on that. Even kind of way.
Absolutely, yes. It's noted in the feasibility report that it's going to be something. So we look forward to a future of collaboration and innovation. And I'd love to hear from the floor at this point. And thank you to all our panelists and experts. We might give them a round of applause. If there are questions from the audience, we've got a roving mic there at the back. Celine, thank you.
Hi. There's a Pakistani delegation which is participating in this event for the very first time, and we have a small exhibition set up there. As you might well know, that Pakistan is one of the oldest countries which has been exporting woolen carpets. At one point in time, the exports for woolen carpets from Pakistan stood at about $500 million US. But what we've seen is that over a period of time, the overall world market is shrinking. So for Pakistan, I think the cost of making those wool carpets plus the labor, I think they both contribute to the fact that there is now less demand. But again, as you've mentioned, there's great opportunity. And why we are here is to make those collaborative arrangements where Pakistan and Ireland can look into where both can benefit from each other's experience. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I think it's really important to share, and that knowledge exchange is really key. And with that wealth of history and knowledge, I'm sure we can, I don't know if you had the opportunity to meet and talk, but I'm sure conversations will spark from that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shelby Hyde. I'm a fashion writer from New York, and I try to focus on sustainability, and that includes the life cycle of an item. So this question, I guess, is for Alison specifically. When it comes to caring for wool and ensuring the longevity of your pieces that you're investing in, how do you suggest we kind of convey that to consumers?
Well, I think, we've heard what a great fibre wool is, and I think actually it doesn't really need a lot of washing. In fact, you could just hang it out on the line the way my mother used to do many years ago, and it's got antibacterial properties, so I think it's not the same as acrylics and other, even cotton fibres. It uses water, yes, and Ngaire's obviously there needs to be research in that area to use less water. But if you think of cotton, it's 2,700 litres of water for one T-shirt. And how many T-shirts do we have in our cupboards? And we might think we're being organic by using cotton, but actually it's such, and that's just in the growing of the cotton. And then, of course, we have to get the cotton here. So, in terms of absolute life cycle analysis, I think wool does not need to be washed. It can be hung out. It can be, cleansed in that way in the air. So I think it's a fabulous fibre from that point of view. And it actually, we could reduce our own footprint in terms of our sustainable footprint in that way.
Other question, sorry. When it comes to secondhand wool, is that something that you guys kind of look at? I know there's an abundance of sheep and to be sheared and that kind of thing, but are there any initiatives that are using, I don't know, maybe secondhand pieces and then upcycling them or recycling them or something? Thank you.
Is that to me?
Yes, or whoever wants to answer.
In terms of student projects, we absolutely are trying to be 100% sustainable. So we do that. We go out to our industry and say, are there any products out there, or any fibres, yarns that you've finished with? We take them in and we'll use them. We did a project with Beggs & Co. where we use their selvage edges and we repurpose those. We make them into artworks or back into fashion garments. I know that Donegal Yarns have worked with Christine Mindersma, and we've repurposed the fibre back into fabrics for interiors. But we've also, actually, I do think it's coming 2030. There's the European strategy for textiles. I think is going to be a real game changer. I work a lot with the engineers in the university, and they are now looking at natural fibre composites in a way that I've never seen before. They are suddenly going, oh dear, our carbon composites are going to cost us so much money, actually, because they live for hundreds and hundreds of years, which I think you were talking about, Claire, in terms of going to landfill. It's going to be costly. So while it's quite a cheap commodity to buy, it's going to be very expensive to get rid of. So then they are now looking at natural fibre composites and things that aren't going to be damaging, that will biodegrade, or that we can bring back into our life cycle, if you like, if you want to bring it back in. as something, whether that's as another thing, or whether that's recycled into yarn and reknitted or rewove. And there's a lot of projects going on, as you know, I'm sure worldwide, but certainly, with our students, we try and be as sustainable as we possibly can, and we are eliminating any polymer plastic fibers that we can get away with, unless we're recycling those fibers, which we do.
Brilliant. Chris?
Sorry, could I ask a question to Jayne just regarding sort of what the British wool marketing board are doing and Ulster Wool's about traceability?
Chris, we might get you just to thank you.
Sorry, just it's a question about the British Wool Marketing Board with Ulster Wools and the traceability. I mean, what mechanisms is there potential there or opportunities for the Irish Grown Wool Council for that added value in terms of the source of the material?
Well, in terms of a model, if you want to think of it in that way, since Wool Trace was brought in 2 years ago now, we've sold over 1.2 million kilograms of fully traceable wool. There's two elements to it. So a manufacturer might want to have wool from a specific area, and they'll pay a premium for that. That'll go into the pot for all of them farmers. Or we have Wool ID, which I brought the tag off my duvet that I got a while ago. And I would love this, if Kevin could, or other manufacturers, could link in with us, would be amazing. So this is the wool room where I got my duvet from, and there's a QR code on the back of the label that if you scan that, it'll take you to a website that will show you every farmer and all the different sheep breeds that were used in my duvet. So I know exactly where that wool is coming from. Now, the manufacturers are paying a premium directly to them farmers that's going straight into their pocket on top of what the wool has made at auction. And it's having that, you're trying to get manufacturers to think about, you have a responsibility to think about where the wool is coming from within your products. And it doesn't just have to be, obviously, Ulster wool or British wool, it's all wool, And it's a big investment, and it's definitely making a positive difference to the auctions. The price is already up 20% from September to now, in this current year already, and I'm hoping by the time we get to year end, it'll be a much more positive picture for our farmers, because as I said, we're not for profit, we're a farmers cooperative, and all of those profits, once all our handling fees come off of everything that we do, that also includes lobbying on behalf of our farmers and sitting down and making things better in the agricultural industry for our sheep farmers. I hope and pray that come May time it'll be a better story than what it's been of late, because it's really been a very difficult slog, even since before COVID, if I'm honest, but it's very slowly creeping back up there, and Wool Trace has been one of the big positive stories to come of that.
Hugely, and what you've got in your hand there, it's a product passport. We're looking down the tracks that this is coming on imminently for all producers of products. So to be able to engage with every step of the journey is it's fantastic what you've been doing. So yeah, well done for all the hard work.
Can I just add, we're so conscious about what we eat and what we have, and the ingredients are listed in our food, yet what the clothes we wear, we don't have the ingredients listed at all. We don't know what the dyes are, we don't know what the chemicals, we don't know what the finishing is of the textiles, we don't know who actually made it. Even though Fashion Revolution have tried to push that, we still don't know who manufactures it. And for me, that is part fully of the full traceability and transparency of production of whether it is clothing or interior use or you name it.
Yeah. Fantastic. Folks, I'm conscious we are up to time. I don't know if there's one final question. Yeah?
Hi, okay, I'll make this very quick. Thank you to the entire council. My name is Andrea, I'm a fashion reporter, and this question was inspired by the R&D in universities around wool. Is the council doing anything with fashion schools to encourage design students to incorporate more wool into their looks for contemporary fashions?
100%, yes. For another cap, I am the education officer for the IGWC, accidentally. Well, I'm delighted to be there, and there's a lot of work. Jayne's got funding to go into the schools. I think it needs to be even earlier than universities. I think we need to be, because, Rebecca, you were talking about, even the health and well-being associated with crafting and working with wool fibres. Through felting, there's lots of wonderful things that we can make, with our children. It's brilliant. So I think we need to get back into, schools at that level. But absolutely, that's a brilliant question. I think education is really important. I think on the island of Ireland, I know that Deirdre's gone, but Deirdre's been working even in Europe. There is again that strategy for textiles is driving a lot of the resources that are being put into networks. For instance, we've just got through a big network plus with Queen's University and universities across the UK. It's a UKRI, so the partners can come in from all Ireland, but generally it's UK universities. But we are looking at Ireland again in that network plus, and that's food, agriculture, and fashion. And it's 6.5 million. We're just waiting. They've just asked us a few questions, and we'll be hearing at the end. But they're the drivers that absolutely will be the game changers, because then what happens, we can pay for PhD students to come on board, and they are the next they're the ones that do the thinking around these broader themes. So that's how it operates within a university. But absolutely, we have it's almost like a pincer movement. We have to come from the young, the very young and the school children, also our university and our brilliant minds, the ones that are going to be the game changers and drive that forward. But there is funding out there. Everything seems to be, it has to be. EDI is a big one. Quality, diversity, and inclusion, and sustainability. They are the key themes that are running through any application that you're pulling together. And the Wool Council, in the form of the Wool Research Hub, we are running after lots of different funding options that are out there. We're absolutely on it.
Yeah. It's okay to add, just for the Wool and School project, Lorna McCormick has a fabulous project for young people, to investigate wool, explore wool, enjoy wool, have fun with wool. And if there's any educators of young children here, or even if you're a parent and want something fun to do with your kid about wool, look it up. It's Wool in School.
Absolutely, yeah, Wool in School, and I think across the whole Wool Hub as well, which Alison mentioned, both herself and I are a part of, and taps across all the universities around Ireland, engaging with wool in all the possible ways you can, from looking at
and that's
fashion
not just
and
design, that's right, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. So we have ATU, who have a real focus around sort of agriculture and alternative uses. Shannon ABC, we're going to have Tim Yeomans here with us on Tuesday to speak about innovation in that space. All the wonderful things that can be derived.
Clever people doing things on the science side, where the money is.
Yeah, and I think for everything, from today, from under our feet to under our head at night, wool can perform in so many wonderful ways. So I'd like to, again, thank all our panellists. A huge thank you to the Design and Crafts Council of Ireland for supporting us in this wonderful showcase event and this series of talks across the next few days. We hope you get to join us for tomorrow and Tuesday's talks as well, where we'll be diving into more wonders of wool. Thank you very much.